Well, if you are watching some parts of the media, you'd think there are only 3 people running for the Republican presidential nomination right now. But the man who finished second in the Iowa straw poll by 1 vote, by the way, running a strong campaign, always at the top of polls, is Congressman Ron Paul. And I'm delighted now to be able to say welcome back to the show, Congressman Paul.
Thank you, Lou. Good to be with you.
Well, let me start by just asking you this. I don't quite understand how this happened within, it seems to me, 48 hours. All of a sudden, the national liberal media decided that there was Rick Perry, who had just entered the race. There was Mitt Romney and Michelle Bachmann, and that was pretty much the idea. What happened there?
I don't have the answer. We'd have to figure out those who, did it. And they were even caught on TV saying they weren't interested, flat out admitted it. So I don't know what their problem is. But fortunately, they're not the only game in town. We still have radio shows that'll have us on.
Yeah, and some television and some television shows.
I'm thankful that you'll still talk to me, so that's good.
Well, it's always an honor to talk with you, Congressman. Your colleague Walter Jones said it's about the arrogance of certain people in the media who don't think he can win. I think it's something else going on. I think there's some folks who think you could win, and I think you and a number of other folks scare the dickens out of them. I think there's an establishment here that looks a little nervous right now to me. What do you think?
I think so. I think they either don't understand what I'm saying, and that might be part of it. But then the other part, they do understand what I'm saying, and they don't want the story out. Because I do challenge, as you have over the years, challenge the status quo of the establishment when it comes to, Federal Reserve and foreign policy and things like this, things that you're not supposed to disagree on. The Republicans and the Democrats are probably in more agreement than most people realize. The rhetoric's different. But the policies always seem to say this stay the same, and they don't want us to really challenge that. So I think there's a little bit of that as well.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. This I don't know what it is. There's some comfort in orthodoxies. The Democrats talk about their big tent, but by the time you get through with the nonsense, they're talking about one view of the world. The Republicans, they don't talk much about a big tent at all. But, there's an orthodoxy there that's hidebound, and I don't quite understand why they're so afraid of ideas, because this country's built on ideas and an arena in which ideas collide and advocates crash into each other, sometimes loudly, profanely even. But the result is a great nation, and I don't understand why we're going in the way in which we are.
And couldn't that be newsworthy? People don't have to agree with me, but if I am challenging them, maybe the message could be that there's a contest going on in ideas. So I think that in itself would justify a little bit more coverage, but maybe then again they have their own reasons for not wanting to hear my message.
Well, I think that the national liberal media in particular is they're so consumed with preserving their initial, if you will, compliance and complicity in the candidacy and in the presidency of Mr. Obama, that they don't quite know what to do. And now the Republicans are presenting all sorts of problems. Because I don't know about you, Congressman, I think this is a very strong field of candidates, and far too strong to dismiss effectively two-thirds of the field. I mean, it's bizarre.
Yeah, it is. And the people who might be protecting the president isn't always those groups that are caring about the underdog. That's their image. Only Obama and his friends care about poor people. But why is it that it seems like he gets plenty of support from all those Wall Streeters and the big money and insurance companies and the drug companies?
Yeah.
I mean, if the Republicans have a negative image about dealing with, moneyed interest, Obama just gets away with it, but I think he has his foot in that door as well.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. This president, a lot of folks don't want to pay attention to this, but the Republican Party in 2008, average donations are a lot smaller than that to the Democratic Party and this president. And that's just, again, that's not, you have to depart from the orthodoxy to actually report that, I guess. But it's the fact. Let me ask you this. Ben Bernanke's up in Jackson Hole. The Fed chairman is going to make a statement, we're told, Friday afternoon, East Coast time. And I know you've got to be excited about that.
Yeah, we're going to be sitting on pins and needles, but he said that he wanted to back off a little bit. He didn't want that speech every year to be releasing any significant information of the change or evaluation of monetary policy. So it'll be interesting what he's going to say, because I think he has something to do with monetary policy, and I don't know why people would listen other than the fact they're interested in what he might do or not say. Or drop one word or change a phrase. It's just amazing how markets can turn on three words. Either he puts it in these discussions or he drops it. But it's sort of exactly opposite of the way our market would handle financial information.
What do you think here? What is the prescription going straight ahead for the Fed? What should they do? And I'm talking about within the limits of what is doable in the next 12 months. What should we as a nation be doing to restore prosperity?
It is so difficult to do one thing and say that's going to do it.
Right.
But I think what they have to do is quit the bailouts, because the bailouts tide us over and they prop up the mistakes. And the Austrian economists always argue you have to have corrections, you have to have liquidations, you have to have those who overextended themselves go bankrupt or pay off their bills instead of transferring that debt to the government. So the Fed very much involved in doing that, much more so than even the Congress, who bought up a lot of bad debt. And so the Fed shouldn't be in the business of bailing out. And they should have, if you're going to have the Fed and you're going to try to transition, it should be a much steadier policy. It shouldn't be, I think QE1 was when Greenspan kept the interest rates too low too long.
Right.
Then, of course, there is the real QE1 and the QE2. Are we going to have a QE3? And, of course, they pump that money in, and all of a sudden the numbers seem to improve, but the people didn't get their jobs, and the stocks went up, and, of course, that lasted, and now we're back down to where we were before QE2. So that's about the only thing he can offer. I think they have to quit doing that. But ultimately, we're destined to have monetary reform. We have to do something differently. And there are those who are talking about monetary reform under the United Nations, but they're not talking about backing the currency or limiting the monetizing of debt. They just want to get control on an international, global extent, rather than just allowing the United States to issue the reserve currency. And, of course, people have lost the confidence in the reserve currency that we have, and I think that's why gold prices are soaring.
Yeah, it's always fascinating to watch how the United Nations wants to play on a number of levels. And we have a one world sort of movement that is every bit as debilitating as the nonsense that we've pursued in this country for some years, which is that monetary policy and fiscal policy can be divorced from the consequences of following those policies. I mean, this country has lived on a Candy Rock mountain of fantasy for 50 years, and I don't comprehend it.
Well, it served our interest on the short run because we became a borrower, and the people trusted us because we had the military might and we had the financial might and the wealth, and still today a lot of people they don't believe that we could possibly fail, that we will always remain the powerhouse.
Yeah.
And therefore we were able to gain our greatest export, and that was exporting our money, which also exported our jobs.
Right.
I mean, the jobs went overseas because we got more for our money, and the foreigners would take it. And I think that's a major part of what happened. But you need to get capital back and jobs back. You have to have a strong currency, and you have to have a tax code conducive that for the businessman to be willing to invest. But we don't have that now. It's over-regulation, over-taxation, too much government debt, too much manipulation by the Federal Reserve. So we've chased everybody home, and there is a lot of capital, there's a lot of savings, there's a lot of dollars, but a lot of it's overseas, and anybody has it here at home are scared to do anything about it. And the banks are still doing well. They're back making big bucks again, and they have a lot of collateral now. But when it comes down to actually seeing these investments, no, the environment is lousy, and I don't see it changing in the near future.
Yeah. Well, Congressman, we've got a lot to talk about, so I hope you'll come back soon. We enjoy the discussion and always are interested in what you've got to say. So
thanks, Lou, for having me.
And good luck and give them hell.
Okay.
All right.
Talk to you later.
Congressman Ron Paul.